Wednesday, February 6, 2019 at 6:32.
Are we gonna do the pledge?
Sure, why not?
Yeah,
So
we
let's
should.
all stand and rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Excellent. Thanks, everybody, for coming. The Mass Fishing Game request, 27 plus or minus acres of land acquisition. Mr. Tenzini?
A while back, we were contacted by representatives of Mass Fish and Game who are with us here tonight concerning their interest in acquiring 27 acres of land that the town holds in 2 parcels. Lori Weta put together a meeting with Conservation, Open Space, Ag Commission, CPA, and some others. Mr. McCarthy wrote some minutes on that, which we provided at your last meeting. However, since he didn't need an answer until tonight, we had requested that you delay this until tonight so that you could have that conversation directly with Mr. McCarthy and representatives of the other the boards and commissions. So I would invite him to either from there or to come up, whatever the board's pleasure is, talk to you about the state's interest in the parcel and answer any questions that you might have, concerns the subject matter boards might have, because I will need a sense of direction from you tonight. I know
Okay.
we don't do formal votes, but at this point, the only thing that I would need is, am I drafting a memo for the annual town meeting,
Or not?
or am I not drafting a memo for
gotcha.
the annual town meeting?
Excellent.
You'll still have that final vote when you adopt the warrant, but he needs a sense of direction.
I would rather see him come up.
Mr. McCarthy, you want to come up and have a seat?
Thank you.
Excellent.
Good evening. Appreciate you having me here today.
Oh, yeah, great.
you.
I'm John Kaplis.
I'm James
Nice
McCarthy.
to meet you.
I'm Diane Haley
Diane
Brooks.
Mr. Doug Morrison.
That earlier.
Please have a seat.
Thank you.
So what do you have for us?
So, I think first off, I just want to address sort of the discrepancy between the 2 options that were first presented to the joint committees when we first met, which was a way of achieving this conservation status. So that's what we're looking to do, as Mr. Ferranzini has conveyed to the select board through his materials, is that we're looking to put together a conservation project totaling at least 500 acres.
Mm-hmm.
For the town's purposes, involvement in this project, there were 2 approaches we suggested. One whereby the town would retain title of the land, transferring care and control to its Conservation Commission, which in Massachusetts would qualify as conserved property. So that was one way that the lands could be conserved as part of our overall project.
Right.
The other option would be just to sell the title to the property in fee interest to Fish and Game, whereby it would be permanently protected and achieving the same conservation status. So at the initial meeting, I think that there was some support for the first option, which was retaining title, but ultimately, after reviewing the benefits to the town through a sale to the state by deriving that revenue of selling the land, also being able to cut some timber as part of that, that seemed to be the best option for the town. From the state's perspective, that's completely fine. We weren't pushing for one option more than the other. So at this point, the Commonwealth is committed to working with the town along the timelines that need to be adjusted for this project to conserve these properties by purchasing them in fee at appraised value. And one caveat to this is that our sister agency, the Department of Conservation and Recreation, so we've got Department of Fish and Game, Department of Conservation and Recreation, both agencies protect land, permanently protect land. So we've talked to our partners at DCR and made them aware of this opportunity that we're working with the town. DCR also expressed interest in purchasing these parcels. So collectively, the state agencies, we think that DCR is actually a more logical fit, given that they own property directly next to the town parcels. Mm-hmm. So for that reason, Fish and Game is happy to step back and let DCR work directly with the town under the same conditions that we've discussed before. It would just be a substitute for the Department of Fish and Game, substitute from DCR for the Department of Fish and Game.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. And obviously obviously the intention for, Fish and Game or for the DCR is obviously to make it conservation so that the people can use the land for, hunting, fishing, or, any extra quick activities, hiking and stuff like that, correct?
That's absolutely right. And so I'm sure these town properties are probably currently used for, a variety of those uses at this point, but not being permanently protected. There's always that potential that some other land use or some conversion of land use could occur. Having them be purchased by the state, they're permanently protected under Article 97 of the Massachusetts Constitution, open to the public for passive recreational uses, which include hunting and trail walking, nature studies, bird watching, things like that. Another benefit to the state owning the properties from the state's perspective is that moving forward, any land management prescriptions that the state chooses to use, whether it be DCR or Fish and Game, those properties could then be folded into the land management that would otherwise be going on the adjacent state property. So that's one additional benefit for us, is that we can continue to manage these town properties as we would the other protected lands that are right there next to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. I know this happened similar to in Gardner as well, I believe. I don't know if DCR or Mass Fish and Game had it, but then I think you guys gave it back to the city for some blue trail or some sort on the backside of where the waste management is, I believe. I'm not sure how that worked.
Yeah, and I don't know that was our agency that was directly involved. I did work with, I worked in Gardner on another landscape partnership grant project whereby the town actually chose the first option we talked about. I believe the town conveyed or transferred the care and control to its own conservation commission.
I see.
Which, so that acreage was able to be counted towards the application.
Oh, okay.
So that's, so in some cases, towns would prefer to keep the title to the land, so that's why we presented that as one of the options to the town of Templeton as well.
Okay. And it would, obviously, you talked the second option, which was sale of the land. That would be at, obviously, market value, I would assume, correct?
Yes, whether it be Fish and Game or DCR, we would commission an independent real estate appraisal, which would dictate what we're able to pay. And what I've communicated to Mr. Terenzini is that we have recently had an appraisal done on a similar backland piece of property in Templeton that appraised at approximately $1,500 per acre, exactly $1,467 per acre. So because that property is in town, in close proximity to these town parcels of similar highest and best use, meaning it's not developable, landlocked,
right,
good for recreation and forestry, my best estimate is that an appraisal for these town properties would be somewhere in that $1,500 per acre ballpark. But again, the Commonwealth's purchase of the lands would be subject to the actual appraisal of these properties. So it could be something somewhat different, but that's my best estimate.
I got you.
Yeah.
Do you have something?
Yeah, it's just, we've been advised that at current, it's not suitable for timber harvest due to the wetlands and accessibility. So that may change. I mean, maybe in 2 to 3 years, but I mean, if you're looking to purchase it, then that's fine.
Right. Well, if the town wanted to go ahead and try to harvest the timber on the parcels before either of the state agencies acquired them, then...
I mean, we're not able to do that at the moment because of accessibility and the wetlands.
Okay.
Do we know if the land is being utilized at the moment for any bird watching or any kind of...
So the variety of public uses that are currently being presented on these town properties, I'm not exactly sure how people are using them to recreate on them. I can't personally answer that question.
Okay.
I would assume they're probably, people are probably out there hiking and hunting on them. I would expect that's probably that's probably the extent of what people are doing out there, I would assume.
I mean, I'd like to still see them being used, but, I mean, that's, if we can do it as a purchase, then it's protected that way, which is exactly what we would be looking for.
Yeah.
I mean, we would want that to happen.
Yeah, again, in my opinion, since the abutting land is DCR land already, it only makes sense to sell the parcels to the DCR or Fish
Or
and
to
Game.
your agency.
And then it is protected. The
people
town
can
has the
still use
benefit
it.
of the dollars that can be used towards, capital, which is, a serious problem for us. We need to be
Right.
investing more in
Absolutely.
capital. So I think it's a win-win for everybody to
Yep.
do the sale.
Yeah, I think from the use perspective, it's what people are allowed to go out there and use the property for is not gonna change much. I mean, the big
No.
thing that state agencies will not allow is camping, campfires, motorized vehicles.
Right.
But those are all things that I'm sure the town would not want people out there doing anyway.
Right.
So really adding it to the protected acreage is the biggest benefit here.
Mhm.
And then also, as you said, selectmen, the revenue that could benefit the town.
Mhm.
So as far as timing of a timber harvest, if it were to have to happen after the closing, there would be, that would be something where whichever agency is involved would have oversight of the cutting. And what's something I talked about with Mr. Terenzini is Mass Wildlife or the Department of Fish and Game. It's, we've done a lot of projects where we've worked with landowners on a final harvest of timber wood products. DCR, being a separate agency, has their own goals for timber harvest and their own silvicultural specific types of prescriptions that they like to see take place. I think the bottom line is that whichever agency works with the town, which at this point we're thinking it's going to be DCR, or that's what we would like to see happen.
Okay.
That whichever state agency is involved is going to have oversight of what that timber cutting looks
And
like.
we would work that into a sale agreement.
That would have to be in as part of the option agreement.
Yep.
Yep. And we would have to see a forest cutting plan as
Yep.
drafted by a DCR or a state service forester.
Okay.
So all these things would sort of have to be buttoned up, but these details can, moving forward into the springtime, I think all these things will sort of line up.
Okay.
And, we can provide whatever assistance the town may need.
And there would be a time limit on it, too, when I've done anything like this in the past. We did the sale of excess lands in North Adams to DEM, DCR, in connection with the Natural Bridge State Park, if you know that project at all. And there was a time window, I think we only had 18 months or
Right.
2 years in which to complete the cutting, if I recall correctly.
Okay.
Because they don't want this to go on forever.
Of course not.
And mostly the other committees that you've met with, and have they reached out to us as far
Well,
as?
and we've got some of the representatives here. The indication at the meeting was that they thought the best option was to have the select board transfer the control to them, care and custody, so they could then transfer it to DCR, because they thought that would save a lot of time and
It does
avoid,
make more sense.
avoid the town meeting. However, it does not save any time. You
Right.
still have to go to
To town
the
meeting.
town meeting.
Mhm.
If the option was driven primarily, as I understood it, by a sense of urgency of time, that really goes away. But we do have several representatives with us here tonight for you.
Great. Conservation Commission, you here? Conservation?
No,
No? Open space?
yes, open spaces.
Come on up, please.
Who is here exactly? So
Dennis
it's
Rich
open
and
space,
I, Carrie Noble.
okay.
Just open
It's
space?
just open
Okay.
space?
Well,
That's it.
I can also represent Community Preservation and
Okay.
Ag Committee,
Okay.
and whatever other board you want to put me on.
Well, I appreciate all your time, I really do, it goes a long way with us. And obviously, your input really goes a long way with us as well, so I mean, obviously, you had an opportunity to meet with this young man and obviously have some dialogue. And what's the input from the ag or from open space?
Actually, we're all in agreement with whatever solution is going to make this whole package work.
Okay.
Because we're very much in favor of seeing, that the whole parcel conserved and made available for Templeton to conserve open space. I think AgCom had, a little bit of nervousness about some of the open lands in the larger parcel, and I think we've talked through those issues. We want to make sure that any farmland that's currently being used is allowed to still be currently used. We don't want to give up any farmland, but as far as conserving the rest for open space, for the use of conservation for the town, very much in favor.
Great.
And I think we've talked through the ag issues, about letting the hay person continue and allow the natural use of the fields up there.
Okay. And how would that work?
Well, I mean, we have pretty much the assurance based upon the past of the way Mass Fish and Game and DCR allow local farmers to bid and to use land and, to sign leases to continue the active use of the land.
And that was my next, so there would be some type of an agreement, memo of agreement.
There is
or a
now,
lease
I
of some
believe,
sort.
on the current parcel, probably with the current owner. And then we had discussed, entering into that your agency would be able to enter into an agreement and an understanding of how the ag lands could be used.
Yes, so Red Tolman, I believe, is
Yes.
the farmer, the guy who has the fields out on where the Fertile Corporation properties are on Norcross Hill Road.
Right.
And we were able to assure Mr. Tolman that after Fish and Game acquires the Fertile Corporation parcels, what we typically do with any project where there are ag fields is we grandfather for 5 years that management and use and maintenance of the property back to, in this case, Mr. Tolman. So just sort of by default of how Mass Wildlife works in acquiring land, he would have another 5-year period from the closing. So say we purchased Fernald in June of 2019, he would have until June of 2024.
I'll catch you.
And then after that 5 years lapses, then consistent with all the other ag fields that we own, it goes out to a public bid process where anyone can come in and bid for, to be able to come in and maintain and hay. Generally, hay is the main type of agriculture that Mass Wildlife sees on its properties, but people have corn crops, things like that. But so it goes out to bid, and again, whoever wins the bid has it for, I believe, a 5-year period, and it just keeps on renewing in that fashion.
I see.
So what we explained to Mr. Tolman at the first meeting was that, so after at the end of the first 5-year period, he'd have just as good of a chance as anybody else to get another 5 years in participating in that public bidding process.
I see.
Which,
And how did Mr. Tolman feel about that? Because he's been there for
He
a long time.
seemed okay.
my take was that he seemed pretty happy because I think he was told by the current owner that he was gonna have to
That he
forfeit
was, yeah,
all
right, he was
use
gonna get kicked
once it
off.
transfers to Fish and Game, which is
Oh.
not the case.
I
I
see.
think
So he
was
felt a
probably-
lot better.
Because I think he invested quite a bit of time and fertilizer into
Yeah,
the
lime
property.
and seed and
He's
so
been there a
forth.
long time.
Yeah, so that's what we love to see.
Right.
And, from Fish and Game's perspective, we have no interest in seeing any of those fields shrink or go away or decrease in quality or anything like
Okay.
that. So
Right.
I think that
Okay.
meshes pretty well with what the local community would like to see happen there as well.
Okay,
Okay.
great. Who else do we have here for any committees?
We have North County Land Trust, which is
Okay.
working in kind of partnership with all this as well.
Yes, so
And-
Jassy Bratko, the Director of Land Protection for North County Land Trust, is one of our partners with the Fish and Game on this landscape partnership grant application whereby we're aiming to protect over 500 acres.
Mhm.
So there's a few basic criteria to meet that grant application, or that grant program, and one of which is you need multiple partners. So we've got that with the North County and the Mount Grace Land Conservation Trust.
Okay.
The 500 acres is another big one. So,
That's why you need this
yeah, so
acreage here.
that's
obviously.
right. So these town parcels are very worthy of being conserved. They're more important at this point in time because we need them to make the whole project go through. But
Can we increase that price because of that? I'm just
Nice
teasing.
try.
It is all about supply and demand.
It is, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
just as
Spoken
Arm's
from a
length.
realtor perspective.
It's like when a willing buyer and a willing seller.
And, we have other leads out or feelers out with other landowners that could feasibly join our landscape partnership grant project. So there's the opportunity for this to develop into something even more significant over the next few months, which is what we're hoping.
That's
That would be lovely.
So that's what we're really hoping will happen.
But my understanding is this would really sort of put
Push
them
the-
over the hump, and
Right.
then anything else that comes along will just be project enhancement.
That's great.
That'd be
But
lovely.
assuming all title issues work out, this really kind of keeps them going.
Mhm.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, it makes economical and financial sense, and obviously, and for Mass Wildlife or for the DCR, I mean,
Right.
for Templeton residents to
That's right.
still use open space and have the capabilities and the availability to do hunting and hiking and having that availability that's right here in the town. I think that's great. Okay, I appreciate your input. Does anyone else have anything for either one?
Well, it's my consensus that we move forward as everyone seems to want this.
Mhm.
Is it your consensus?
It is. I
Is it
think.
your consensus, Jeff?
For option 2 to sell, yes?
Yeah, option
For
two.
Option two.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
And I think that would be a good start
Then
for
I
you.
will prepare when I work on the warrant for the annual town meeting that you'll be receiving the draft of
Mhm.
on February 27th to include an article, and I will send that to you to take a squint at it,
Okay, that'd be
just
great.
so we can make sure we're in reasonably good agreement,
Okay,
and we'll make it assignable, or we'll make it just sail to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
okay, that would be wonderful.
But we can work that out in the next week, 10 days.
Yeah.
Thank you
it-
for coming again, and
Yes.
thank you
Really,
so much
thank
for
you
your
for-
time.
Thank you for having me. No,
We
thank
really
you for your time.
appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Thank you
Nice
so
to meet
much.
so much. Nice to meet you, Elaine.
And
Thank
I'd like
you.
to thank
That's all right.
I was close.
Thank you all
Sherry
for coming.
and the others for attending, and they put some time into this, and we
Yeah.
thought, and Lori, for coordinating that,
Yeah,
because
thank you, Lori.
we thought it was important that these subject matter commissions have the initial conversation and then
Yes.
be part of this conversation.
That's great. Thank you, Laurie. You're the best.
She is, isn't she?
She is. She is. That's why she got awarded.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you'll never live that down. Never, never, never.
Never to be lived down.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you so much. Oh, the whole audience left. Great. Except
I
Adam.
think it would
Thank you,
be,
Adam.
I would like to make a suggestion for Adam
Yes.
to move up here.
Please,
Just
Adam,
to
come
be
on up
able
here.
to have significant conversations.
That's good. Good call. Yeah, you can sit next to me. See how that works? With the microphone right there. so
Thank you.
just Speak clearly.
Yeah, you might want to move that to the, so it's not right up your nose.
Great. We're gonna,
Just saying, I mean,
Unless it's, flu season.
well, yeah, then you can pass it around. Hey, why not?
John, if we
Yes.
could, I'd like to skip over 5. Kelly is delayed, and I'd like to try to hold it till the end in case she's able to join us at all.
which one?
The next item, which is the treasure collectors.
Oh, okay, gotcha. So you're gonna go to
Sewer
the
receivables.
review meeting, town meeting attendance and improvements?
Yeah, if we could.
Yeah, let's go ahead.
So, coming out of the board's workshop, which had some goals trying to increase attendance at town meetings and participation
Mhm.
of the citizenry, and some conversations that the town clerk and the town moderator and I had, the moderator had requested that we put together, kind of an open forum and invite the citizenry in. And we did that on January 29th. Julie Richard was able to attend, and we had some folks from the advisory committee and then a citizen at large. In the minutes, you can see kind of some of the things that we talked about. Actions under consideration. We did add one this morning when I had a chance to review this again, is the town clerk will be investigating the costs of mailing out postcard reminders or some different things along those lines. And we've added on the bottom of these minutes a note for people so that, you can click here to go see the full 90-minute conversation or something. This will go on the website tomorrow, these minutes, along with the link to the website. So again, we can try to get folks a little bit more involved. We've had some good news over the last couple days between the credit rating and the Baldwinville Elementary School going out for bidding, and we don't like to do more than one news and announcements on a day. They just crowd each other
I understand.
out. So on the back page is kind of the opening conversation that we had in kicking the meeting off. On the front page are a number of the suggestions that were made, possibly changing the start of the meeting time from 7 PM to either 6 or 6:30 PM, providing childcare at all town meetings. One of the important things that I said, and we all kind of, I think, agreed to, is that once you have a process in place, it needs to be the same all the time. You don't only have childcare if a given group has an item of interest on the agenda. You
Yeah,
have
we
it all the
used to
time.
have childcare, do you remember that? Like the
Mhm,
year
yeah.
that Gansett Greatness wanted to have its override, and then it simply fell to the wayside.
Right,
And
you-
it wasn't provided again.
You don't only have
Yeah,
school
you can't
kids,
do that.
singing the
National anthem?
the national anthem when
Right.
there's something on the warrant that
Right.
you're interested in.
That was supposed to continue.
You need to have, I mean, if you heard the mantra from me for 3 years now, you do the same thing the same way each time.
Right.
You lock it in and it's processed.
I would love to see that be done
Julie
at every meeting.
thought, maybe sort of a mini carnival for the kids, so that there's something to do that's active and outdoors if it's good weather. And possibly trying to get more of an explanation of how town meeting works, how to do this, how to do that. We did have in the voter's guide the last couple of times a little more explanation of some financial terms, but Derek thought maybe we could expand upon that a little bit. Having it be clear, when the selectmen are making a recommendation, and if a member of that body is opposed, that they should actually leave the table, go into the well, and then speak as a citizen.
Right,
Because the board has a position,
right.
the advisory committee has a position, and if the minority view from either, they should actually leave their groups and go to the well. That was
Well,
a
if you
suggestion, just
have
to
an
make it clear.
opinion as a citizen, which you have a right to have,
Yeah.
you should be down below.
Yes,
But the idea was that if you had to do that, it would be clearer and less
Right.
confusing to
Right.
people.
Right.
Possibly
We've always
changing
done
from
that.
verbal voting to raising a hand.
Mhm.
Just eliminate the verbal voting.
Yeah,
go right
because
to a
we've had
hand.
some issues with that.
Yep,
Yes, and
It's
when,
who can yell the loudest.
so that was a suggestion. These are just suggestions at this point. These are some of the things. If you have questions about it, let us know, please.
I really liked the one policy and procedure, like on a slideshow, for the
Yeah.
30 minutes prior to
Yeah,
the meeting when
some-
people come in, and I love that idea.
Right.
So people can just kind of come in
Start
and
to
sit
get a feel
down
for it.
and, yeah, I
Yep.
really like that idea.
So these are the things that came in. We're gonna get them out on the web tomorrow. Now that I'm thinking about it, Holly, we should probably add a piece about if people have questions or suggestions. Below where it says, you can click here to see the meeting. If you have questions, email them too. Maybe we should add that in the morning before we take this. And then we'll regroup, after budget's released, as we start to get a little closer to town meeting.
Yeah, that's nice.
Um,
Well done.
But I thought Derek's suggestion, actually, I was pleased. We had, five,
Wow.
6 people there.
That's great.
sorry I had to leave. I apologize.
Stuff
I had
happens.
I
a
couldn't
family,
even come.
family emergency at the house.
Awesome.
Yeah, no, it wasn't awesome. But you said a voter's guide, to expand the voter's guide. Can you give me like an example?
I guess so that, explanations of what's a main motion? How do I amend? There's no such thing as a substitute motion.
Right.
There's an amendment to the main motion.
Right.
I'm done. I just want to move the question. What happens? So that it's in the voter's guide ahead of time.
I see what you're
It's
saying.
been up
I
on
gotcha.
there. So that Derek doesn't have to take 3 minutes. And it doesn't sound like a lot, except for when you have to do it 4 or 5 times in a meeting.
Right.
And explain, I can't accept, or I won't accept, a motion to move the question until I have had at least 1 pro and 1 con
Right.
speak on
I got you.
it. What is a motion to dissolve? When will I take it?
I got you.
Some of those kinds of things,
Mhm.
so that he can reduce the amount of time he has to explain things.
Now, obviously, we can add, again, being in the service, I mean, you can add to, you just can't take away. So obviously, there is obviously, Robert's rules that govern, and obviously there's a book that governs
The
town
town
meeting.
Town meeting
Times.
times,
Yep.
we don't,
Exactly.
they don't go by Robert's rules.
Oh,
at
town meeting time, excuse me. If I'm not mistaken, we can have our own policy on that too, couldn't we?
Well, the town has adopted town meeting times by
Right.
bylaw.
By bylaw, right.
So,
A lot of
but-
people bring it with them.
the moderator has an opportunity to make his own rules as to how he'll do things.
Understood.
I think that it helped last year when the advisory committee's recommendations were in the voter's guide.
Mhm.
And we talked about if there is a minority view, maybe it's best, the vote was, it's a select board, the vote was 3-2, with the minority view being, and then, keep it short and tight.
Right, direct, right to the
and
point.
sweet,
Right.
instead of somebody on the floor saying, well, I wanna know why the two voted against it.
I see. I
If
got
you have something short and tight and sweet in the book, you save that question and then you save the folks getting up and explaining the time
see.
that takes.
Okay, I got it now. Thank
So
you.
those are the kinds of things, without making the book too thick, too complicated, because then no one's gonna read it. It'll become,
Cumbersome. I got you.
and
Okay.
for many people, the first time they're seeing this is when they come to a meeting.
Mhm.
You all will remember because you'll go to 3 terms, 2 meetings a year, 6 town meetings.
Yeah,
But,
not 6 meetings for,
but not 6 meetings for a year. And a lot of folks, they don't come to every town meeting, and so
Right.
they don't get skilled in that.
Okay, I got you. Well, I definitely, I definitely would like to see your attendance approved. Because I think that people need to understand this is their town. Their voice needs to be heard.
their voice
Well,
matters.
or it does matter, it matters
Yeah.
greatly. I mean, that's why we ran to represent them during the course of the year in the best way we can. And then obviously during a town meeting, if they agree or don't agree, and they have the ability to say what they need to say. I mean, this goes back to the 1700s. I mean, nothing's really changed, and, we keep doing the same thing, but how do we change days, we change times. Do we add childcare or don't we add childcare? I mean, I know Julie's idea with the carnival outside, which is a great idea. Or having, the high school kids, get involved, make it a community event. Not just, that's the annual town meeting, it's actually a community event. And we just don't want special interest groups that are coming just because they have an article on the table, and then once the article's done, then they get up and leave. It's like, there's more to this town than just, the school, or the fire department, or the police department, or this building here, or there's more to it. There's a lot of moving parts that I think they need to understand and realize. And in order to make everything go, it takes the people to make it go. It's just not us.
Yeah, but getting the word out, because I mean, again, we have new people that move to town every year. People move out, so people who didn't know it are gone. People who come in don't know. So that regular annual communication as to why town meeting is important.
Right.
I mean, when I moved here, I had no idea what a town meeting was, had never planned to attend one. I just happened to see the sign, in the comments. Oh, I wonder what that is.
Now look at
So-
you.
Right, yeah. So it
Wasn't that a good idea?
But again, I mean, it's getting the importance, I mean, that's what you were talking about.
Right.
It's important and everybody needs to participate, but conveying that importance to the population as a whole,
Right.
even though there's gonna be costs. So I think this, mail the comprehensive postcard to residents. Yeah, there's a cost associated with that, but that's the way, at least you're making the opportunity and giving the people the opportunity to read and understand, oh, there is importance to doing this.
Well, I think one more thing is making sure that the school, doesn't have events on that day.
True, yeah.
I mean, this town meeting is set in the bylaw for such and such a day on, try not to have anything on that day so that parents can come, at least one parent or guardian, You know, you can plan for possible daycare, you know, but we would figure out a way to possibly provide the rest. You know, and you're right, as a community event, I've asked and asked and asked for that. We did it on a Saturday because parents wanted to come, and then people didn't show up. So we tried.
Why can't
No.
can we also do like the postcard thing I think is a great idea, and there
It
is
is a
there
great
is there
idea.
is an expense. But, I mean, couldn't we utilize the other resources around us as well? Such as like the school, with a single-page handout that every student goes home with. That really is a minimal cost, except the paper and the
I
copy
don't know if the
machine to write
school's
it.
allowed to do that.
Or could we maybe put them in the electric bills that go out? Work some out with the municipal light department to say, again, they're doing the mailing anyway, so can we just add this piece of paper to it? Is there something like that we can do, which,
We can catalog.
I'm just
So,
throwing
yeah.
things out there.
No, I agree. I mean, the
I think
code
they
red
used to be able
system-
to do that when they had that in-house, when they did them in-house, but now they get folded
Get
and
contracted
stuffed outside of the department, so I think I had asked about that for some reason,
But
and,
they still have a message. Generally, it's limited to 20 characters. But there's
yeah,
often a message like.
yeah.
But I mean, certainly,
I
at
forget
a
how that
minimum, we
works,
could
but,
catalog these ideas and explore them.
right,
And then we can explain, yes, no, yes, postcards are great, here's what they're gonna cost.
right.
Let's use Code Red instead, Facebook, this, that. Because truthfully, so many people, other than me, have moved to the smart devices for everything. That's how they communicate with
That's right.
the world.
That's right.
Social media and smart devices.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure it out too, so don't feel bad.
Well, that's why I don't have one, because they're all smarter than I am.
Well, my 6-year-old figures it out better than I do, so. But anyways, so those are just some of the ideas.
Sure. So we'll add to this kind of cataloging some
Sure.
other communication avenues.
Great. I mean, everything else,
Thank you.
thank you so much. That looks really good.
Yep.
Moving on. We good?
To this young lady over here.
Okay, the website policies that we're looking at next?
Yep.
The draft of the website policy. Nice.
I found a couple other changes.
Is this to the,
What I had given you.
is this to the,
Sure what?
I
is
found a
this-
couple other changes.
does
I
this
was
come to
gonna
like
give
the
you.
social media
conversation
policy that I
on this.
presented like a year ago? Does this have, remember the social media policy I drafted up?
Oh, that's different.
Is that's
That's
different?
different.
Okay.
Yeah, we have that.
Didn't you read it, Sean?
Too.
No, I can't. What, this? Read this?
It's not even close to the social media policy.
No, I didn't get a chance to because I was having some technical difficulties with
Oh.
email capability. Holly
Oh,
just fixed me.
That's why I
Holly,
like
just slide
paper.
over from the beginning, there you go. You gonna be able to blow that up at all?
I don't know about that. They
You
have
got a
it.
paper
They
copy.
have it.
Okay, okay.
I need a magnifying glass still, but it's good.
So on the website policy, Jackie and I have been kind of working on a lot of things with getting the website going, and we're almost there. But we wanted to get this all set on the page 2 on the bottom, activities on the town web calendar.
Page
Drafted
2.
some language on who can post, who can put events on. We wanted to see if you had any questions on that or comments on that.
Should we have?
Well, we talked about building a calendar, and before we build the calendar, and we talked about letting businesses on it. But before we launch the calendar and let anybody start sending requests in, what they've been working on is what kind of events. So in this, basically, it's any allowed event being sponsored by one or more organizations being held in Templeton, and whether that needs to be nonprofit or whatever. And they said, any event being held by a business located in Templeton, with an event being considered for the purposes of this calendar, a specifically timed occasion with a start and end time which includes entertainment or activities. So I think, Holly, correct me if I'm wrong here, but what they were trying to get at was paint night, trivia night.
Cribbage tournament.
Cribbage tournament.
Something.
You know, you have a diner that's that's having, you know, classic cars being brought in that night, which is pretty common in my area. There's you know, one of the old stainless steel diners on Route 104.
Right.
And about 10, 12 nights during the spring to the fall, they bring in the classic cars. So we're having a roast beef special? No. But come see the classic cars Thursday night, 5 to 7, yes.
I see.
And we want you to feel comfortable with what you're willing to post.
And this
So that
calendar
the
is actually,
businesses understand when they apply.
and this calendar is different than our meeting calendar, obviously, because we did talk about the two separate
Yeah.
calendars.
Do you have the web template itself, Holly, the
Yeah.
new? Can you take that full size at all?
Let's see. I think it's about as big as I can get it.
So you'll see your town calendars, which has upcoming meetings, and then below that, it has the next 4 or 5 meetings that are coming up. Those are actually identified. Then,
Can you click on upcoming meetings?
No, this is just a picture.
it's just a
It's not- 'cause
screenshot.
It's not live
I
yet.
got you.
But down here on the bottom where this picture is where the community events
That's where the
calendar.
community, yeah, I thought we had
Okay.
discussed that, and the community calendars. Is there anything, I mean, we had said if you're a local business and you call up and you say, I want, I mean, we said,
Can you go to the form, Holly, the submission form? So if you're a local business and we would want to get this out,
So I have it on here, so this will be on the, when you click onto the calendar.
can you
this
go to
will
the
pop up.
slideshow, please? From the beginning?
Okay.
So if you look at the handout that you've got, this is a notice, the Town of Templeton Community Events Calendar. So if you're the Rec Commission, the Senior Services, the library, anyone in that community services grouping, they will all have access to post items directly.
but if you're someone else,
If
you
you're
have to fill
someone
out a
else,
form?
You have to fill out a form.
Yeah.
What does
And
it look like?
So click here and, look over the website. When it feels like it.
can you take that full size in
This
the
is
upper
the
right
old,
corner there?
you know, current website. It'll be a little bit different.
So you would put in your event name,
That is full size.
okay. So you'd put in your event name, you'd put in the date of your event. If there's gonna be a rain date, you'd put in the alternate date, what the location is, and this is a little bit longer than maybe, but we really wanted it to be thorough. What's the name of the organization or business, so that we know who we're dealing with? What's the website? That would allow us to be able to direct traffic to them.
All right.
Who's the name that we're gonna contact? What's their email address? Is there anything else? There's gonna be a band concert in the gazebo. Bring your lawn chair. There's gonna be a snowshoeing. Bring your snowshoes, or we provide the snowshoes. There's gonna be a hike in the summer. Bring your mosquito repellent. Who submitted the form? Is that doubled, Holly?
There.
Is that up there
Yes, it's up there twice.
twice?
Name of person submitting form, and it says title of
It's
person
the
submitting
title.
form.
Okay.
Yeah, the name and their title.
And then when is it beginning and when is it ending? And they submit it. We need it, what do we say, 2 weeks ahead of time?
Yeah.
And then Jackie would post these up. Each commission, are we able to show them the colors, or is that on the calendar?
That's on the calendar.
It's right here.
Now, who does this go to?
This will go to Jackie. She's gonna be posting the community and business events as well as, you know, library.
So she'll post library and the nonprofits, Narragansett Historical Society, Lions Club, Civitan, whatever you have, churches,
Right.
businesses. Senior, historic, recreation, the others will be able to post,
Post on their own.
directly.
And it will all go to a central calendar that will be uploaded automatically to the calendar.
So when she posts them, is she gonna call them at all and like introduce herself, or
Send a response back saying.
like,
"Received this."
hi, I posted it, thanks so much for submitting our form, or just kind of making a personal contact?
I'm assuming she'll probably email them back. I
We'll
believe
have to
that's
talk
what-
with her. I mean, I think email's gonna be the best
Okay.
use of time.
I got you.
Okay.
Efficient, you know.
Just like a kind of reach out, kinda, hi, thanks for like wanting to post with the town of Templeton, just
I think that having
a personal contact.
your notice has been posted, thanks for thinking of us,
Yeah,
you know.
I just wanted to.
We look
to
forward
know
to
if we
working
would-
with you
yeah,
to make the community
your
more
event successful.
active, vibrant
Yeah.
place
It's
to
like
live.
something,
Yeah, I think
yes.
that's a good note to take.
just to reach out. That's all. I don't mean for it to be like this big 10-minute conversation. That's not what I mean at all.
Right.
I understand like they're busy, but, I mean, if a new business is reaching out to us, or any business in town, we should like reach out to them and say, hey, thanks so much for wanting to reach out to us.
And the same should be true if you are gonna deny posting something. If somebody submits something and you choose not to post it,
Right.
certainly
you
need to
wanna-
let them know
you-
you're not
you-
posting
We'll
it and
we'll
why.
do that.
Yeah, I did put something on the top. It's kind of hard to see. If your event is not submitted in the proper time frame or may not be included in the community calendar, you will hear back shortly. So they know, you know, they'll hear back.
Okay.
And we can reword that.
Yeah, I think we can work that through. But the big thing to it is to make sure that the organizations and businesses and the staff understand the rules of the road.
Right.
Interestingly, they reached out to a couple of communities and said, you know, do you have a policy on this? And they were like, we just put anything up. I'm not quite as brave as that, and I didn't get the sense you all necessarily were
No.
quite that open-minded. I don't mean to say open-minded, but you just didn't necessarily have
Right,
the array
Right.
of things that we'd post be
right,
without some sort of constraint.
right. Okay.
Excellent.
So, what we'd like to do is, I know that this is, policies quite a bit, so what we'd like to do is to ask for any comments on it, by, the 18th of this month, if we could, which
And we
would
have two.
allow us to, revise and amend, possibly, understanding our priorities, the budget and
I already
legislative
submitted mine, John,
package.
twice.
You did. Fantastic. I
we
figured
could-
you would have.
Possibly get this on the business agenda of the 27th
Okay.
for action. Again, understanding we got a holiday coming in here, and the budget and legislative package has to be priority.
You don't have any more changes from me, just those two that I gave you. I promise.
Holly, can you put that in the minutes, please?
Nice.
Well, you know, like when you look at something and then you look at it again, you go, oh.
And, you know, the funny thing is, and we all do this, you know, we'll take like the budget narrative or something, and Holly will do it, and then we'll ask Carol Harris to do it, and then we'll have our ultimate proofreader, Laurie, Weta, double check it, and then I'll sit there, you know, a month later, and I'm like, okay, how did we all miss,
Mm.
whatever it was.
Totally get it.
So we'll target this, hopefully for comments by, the 18th.
Okay.
Thank God I'm done.
Actually, the 19th, because the 18th is a holiday, and then adoption on the 27th, if that's agreeable.
It's agreeable with
Yep,
me.
sounds good. Excellent. You have anything else on that, Doug?
Nope, I think it's shaping up nicely.
Excellent. Let's move on to the review the potential community compact grant regarding the IT. Doug?
I would ask Doug to kind of bring you up to date on
Kinda-
where we are in looking at the next evolution, and then Adam and I can speak to the community compact as a potential resource.
Excellent.
So, from a technology standpoint, we have, taken the first steps to get the server back online here. We've done, the Active Directory project to, build a domain into this site. Domain allows, more centralized control, makes it a lot more difficult to hack, things like that. We've just recently done the migration to Office 365, which gets us out of, obsolete, unsupported software for our productivity tools. Gives us, some robust email that actually has, enforced retention policies, backups, all of those types of things. So we've made some good first steps to get our house, started down the right road. So our next steps, though, is we've got to think beyond town hall. We have to get, the other locations. How are we going to tie those to the domain? Are we going to do communications between the buildings? Are we going to utilize the cloud to do our, Active Directory and domain management? Then we have to think about, the more complex you make this, you've got to be able to have a support mechanism. So we don't have IT staff. It's probably not likely that we're going to have IT staff. So we have to look at, managed services or contracted services. With contracted services, it might be a little cheaper, but you don't have, you may or may not get quick response depending upon who your provider is. It doesn't include any hardware support typically, so you're going to have, this is broken. Okay, we got to drop $5,000 all of a sudden to, fix this thing or replace that machine. With managed services, it's basically a bundle that takes care of everything, in most cases. So, switch fails, they come and replace it because you've been paying, for the managed service. So, those are the areas that we have to start looking at now, is how are we going to, finish off the infrastructure and protect our data, and how are we going to manage this more complex IT infrastructure? So that's the steps we're looking towards.
Right, so you mean you would tie in like the police department, the fire department, council on aging, the library, and the different locations that are there. Like, I know the fire department has two locations, two main fire stations.
Yep.
So they would be umbrellaed into the same server.
That's into the same domain,
Into the
not necessarily the same server.
Right, same
But
domain.
the same domain.
Right.
Yep.
Hmm.
Yeah, some servers can be physical servers here on site, they can be physical servers in the cloud.
And then obviously there's two ways you can do this. You can either do like a partial package where you're not gonna get the support services that you need, or you do this package which you can potentially get the more services that you need, which will also cost more money.
Right. And, managed services unfortunately is a, monthly expense, versus, a capital. But when you own all this hardware, you have to have capital money to buy it. And then if it fails, what do you do in the middle of the year when you haven't appropriated capital money for the replacement of a server?
Right.
Well, depending on how much it is, it could be a capital expense because you have to add it up. What if the monthly expenses comes to over $10,000? That would qualify as a capital expense, correct?
Well, not if it was an operational, not if it was a managed service contract. So one way is you buy your server, you buy all your PCs, you buy your firewall, you buy your routers, you buy and own everything. and that's capital, that's great. But somebody still has to maintain it all.
Right,
Mhm.
okay.
The other way of these managed services firms is they say, sure, we'll give you a server, we'll install a router for you, we will install malware, antivirus protection on every desktop, and we will charge you X for that. And they recover their capital costs and their costs of operating it. And then they give you a price to come around the building, all the buildings, once a month, once a quarter. They install any patches that need to be done. They troubleshoot, they do all those kinds of things.
And that's what you pay them for.
Yeah,
I understand.
But again, it's also, this thing isn't working, you pick up the phone, you call
And you
them,
call
and
them,
they
and they
take
have
care
to
of
be
it.
there for you.
So they, in essence, become your IT staff.
Mhm.
So specifically talking about the IT, the grant itself, the compact grant, I mean, what do you foresee us building at this point? Just the network to the other locations, using this potential IT grant for that purpose?
Yeah, so Adam and I went through it, one time and looked at the various options that were available to apply for. Most of them are focusing on the planning and design of your IT strategy versus the actual execution of it.
Right.
So I think that's probably, the area that we would want to go. We have to look at, we've got to make the decision, are we going to go with managed services, or are we going to continue with, buying capital hardware, having that hardware, replacing it when it fails, and just have a managed service company to manage that hardware that we own.
Mm-hmm.
So, once we know, and again, it's hard to know that without doing some analysis. So,
You want this to do the analysis piece to see where we can get the bang for our dollar as far as the town is concerned.
right, so, and you can apply for a couple of different categories. So, we could apply for one that is, kind of research and planning dollars, as well as one that is for, implementation dollars. Or we may want to do parts of it for the domain and the infrastructure, and part of it for, website or, enhanced things like that. So there are options. I don't know if you guys have
Yeah.
talked more and have a sense of what you think the best utilization of the grant would be.
Yeah, I was doing the grant, Carter and I were working on it the past couple of days because we had to submit for the shared fire services. So we did use one of the best practices because they kind of work where you need to submit, and as we looked at the first best practice and the second best practice. So with our first best practice, we submitted shared fire services because it makes us eligible for the bonus points, because these are competitive grants. There's two of these, the IT one that we're discussing now, and this board voted to move forward with the shared fire services. So we wanted to get that grant in because the deadline was February 15th. Fortunately, with this one, we would want to submit our second best practice as we reviewed, Selectman Morrison, because then we're eligible for the bonus points moving forward for this timetable of August 15th to September 15th.
Mm-hmm.
And with the IT grant program, we're eligible up to $200,000. But the problem with the best practice, getting into it's relatively easy. The second grant that you have to submit, and Carter and I worked on it together because it's very thorough with all the questions they ask. You really want to submit a best practice with it,
Right.
because they're so competitive. You really want to, like we did a first best practice, and on the sheet as we reviewed it, you have to submit two, but I did call the DOR and spoke with the representative, and they could because the select board voted, we would want to get confirmation before we would go and submit the second best practice.
I see.
Just to give you a little background on where we're at, so.
So they have a series they have 3 pails, and I get boggled by it sometimes. So the first is best practice, and that's where you would establish financial management policies, have good security on your IT, make use of new and innovative IT for record keeping and efficiency. And they have all these series. And you can get planning money, like we did with Collins and the like.
Right.
The second then is regionalization and efficiency. So you kind of have a foot in both worlds. You have to always you always have to have a foot in world one, which is their best practice world.
Once you get in that world, you can move on to the others.
Then there's the IT. So if you went and said, our server's dying, we need to replace it, no. But if you go and say, right now, we manually keep track of everything in the Development Services Office. We're not able to share it amongst our various inspectors. The community at large is not able to see the inspections that we do of restaurants or this or that. We would like to buy software module X, install it, and train it, so we can share amongst all our inspectors, we can let the community see it, and so on and so forth. Now that IT piece potentially becomes eligible because it supports this best practice over here.
I see.
You know, a highway, it's not connected up here, we don't have connectivity, we don't have communications, they aren't able to talk with each other down there. So, you know, Pam doesn't necessarily know what's going on with the cemetery things. So we need to do that, we need to get that up here. Now that's potentially eligible under IT.
I see.
So, the sewer collections possibly, especially since that's something DLR's been really kind of honed
Pushing
in on
for.
for a while.
Wow.
So we don't know exactly, and what we did learn yesterday was they wanted to make sure that we were very careful about looking at the best practices before we submit something that was pretty obvious wasn't gonna fly.
Okay. Okay.
We do hope to have something resolved in this area by close of business this month, because we do have some fairly important issues to be pushing forward.
Right.
And if we can't get them really compact, we may need to look at them. I did give the capital planning committee just, here's an issue. I have no clue what the number is, because we don't yet.
Okay. So you get more information by the end of the month, you think?
That's my hope.
Okay.
I think it's something we should move forward.
Oh, definitely, definitely. I mean, and take advantage of every assets and resource that we can.
Right.
I mean, it's gonna make us better. You know, it's gonna make, you know, because communication's key.
And protection.
Yes, and
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
security and
Security.
protection. Yes,
Absolutely.
yeah, absolutely. All right, does anybody have anything else on that, on the IT? No.
So did you already, can I please clarify, did you already start answering some of the questions so that you could potentially submit something, or you were just trying to figure out which bucket to put it into?
Well, this was mainly for the community compact that the board authorized for the shared fire services. We need to submit the best practice in order to get the
Right.
bonus points. And I actually had to call Kevin over in Phillipston to make sure that they submitted as well.
Right, which they did, right?
Which,
Okay.
yeah, I sent them an email.
Which I
and
had
they
read the weekly report and,
Right.
okay,
And that was for the shared fire services, so in order for us to be eligible for bonus points here, we would want to apply for the second best practice
Okay.
in IT.
Okay, I see
Okay.
what you're saying.
thank you.
Great.
It's kind of, Carter and I were wrapping our head around it.
Yeah, it sounds a little confusing, but, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Moving on to the codification hearing, how'd that go?
Codification hearing less lightly attended. Tom Harrington came out along
That was
with
very
Katie Stock, I think her last name is, if I remember correctly. He had a takeaway from that meeting of a couple different questions. He's made some revisions. which he did get to us last week. Carol and I will
So we
try to
did.
go through them tomorrow so we can get them back up on the website.
Okay.
And we'll do a news and announcements on that next Monday or Tuesday. Again, we don't like to do
Multiple, I
two
got you.
things in a day. We're trying to get a little bit better about making sure when it goes up on us, it goes up on Facebook also.
Okay,
Oh, good.
That is something we need to be daily posting to keep it in front of people. Not much I can give you on that right now. I do think that it's going to be a challenging process. I do think the moderators agreed that Diane doesn't have to read all
oh, good.
300 pages of the red line. He'll accept gifts and
As much
praise.
as I love to read,
glazed donuts or
I
cannolis
would
for
be
that.
dying if I had to
Um,
read all that.
He told us it was okay, you could take a pass on that.
Now, you still have all, the draft still has, or the codification that we received still has all the lines in it, the black lines, the
Right,
red lines and all that.
right. So
When do we
there's-
get when's a clean copy?
I don't think we'd plan to make a clean copy.
You just gonna keep it the way that is?
I think we want people to be able to see the red line right up to the last
Right.
Okay,
minute. We will, however, perhaps in March, and then maybe even again in April, have at least one more
Oh,
public
yeah.
forum, if not two.
okay,
So after we get this stuff on the website, we'll give you the link and let you know, so you can take a look at it, and tell us what you might think the next best step is. I don't mind bringing Tom out, but it's basically $1,000 bill
right.
to bring him out.
He did a nice job. I came.
Good.
I gave some suggestions. And,
That's unusual.
I know, don't you
You-
think?
yeah.
I can't even believe I gave any, but,
You spoke?
listen, he took it very well.
I'm glad.
But he gave a nice PowerPoint presentation, and how he put it together it was very well done. Katie did a nice job too.
You know, and
So-
as I'm thinking about it, even if we don't have the rules and, what's a motion and such even to have Tom's PowerPoint up there on a
Yes,
slide
yes,
show might prove helpful.
yeah,
Because there's the codification, then there's about, I forget now, 5 or 6. Then there's the zoning amendments
there's just,
So
yeah,
there's
the
gonna be
zoning
quite a
amendments are
few
completely
that are
separate.
very, very lengthy.
Yeah.
Great.
Very.
There's actually not much once you get behind it, but I know it can seem overwhelming to some folks.
Yeah.
Understood.
Lot of corrections, a lot of clarifications, and the ones that they pulled out because of the major changes, they did a nice job. Really, he did a great job. The firm did a nice job, Carol did a great job, Carter did a great job. It was well done.
Yeah, I think,
It was well done.
Good.
And it is worth it to watch the video. It is, I would encourage the public to watch the video and to read
that's a good
the
idea.
bylaws.
yeah, maybe put that on the Facebook or,
When we put that up next week, let's make sure we put a link to the video. That's a good idea.
yeah,
Yeah,
that way they can understand it.
yep.
Good call. Anything else on that? And you said with potentially 2 more public,
At least
Potentially.
one, if
Yeah, I
not
think
2.
you should have one.
I mean, truthfully,
In the
we've only
warmer
gotten one
weather.
set of comments, but that's always a challenge, is it's not just about letting folks know what town meeting's coming up and what it's about, trying to get them as well informed as possible ahead of time.
yes,
Because there are some folks that are used to what town meeting's all about, they wanna come in and do business.
Right.
So the better we can get folks informed, the more questions we can get addressed going into the town meeting, the better we can make it for everybody.
excellent, okay.
Yeah.
I think we're all agreeing on that. Okay, let's move on to the review of the budget status.
Well, Adam had a little epiphany the other day.
He did, he
He
did.
did. I told him about 2 weeks ago that, we were getting pretty close on up here. And
Yeah.
the other day, he said, well, when's all this have to be ready? And I told him, and his eyes opened a little bit wide, but we've got him back down, and lashed him to the keyboard. And it's coming along. I'll leave it at that. We will meet our deadline, of course. I do want to let you know that the total of new revenue that we anticipate is in the range of $325,000.
So it's less than we actually,
The state is up by about 20, but our charges, back charges to the air pollution control and MART and the others are up by about 10.
okay.
So the end of the day, state aid is only up about $10,000. I did send, that you'll see in your packet, a note to Senator Goby and Representative Whips today, telling them we look forward to seeing them Wednesday night and giving them 4 items that I thought would be of concern to the board, the $250 on the police.
Yep.
The pilot. One of the reasons we're only up about 10 is the pilot was cut by about $35,000.
Right.
But last year, to remember, Senator Goby was very successful in getting that raised back up.
Right.
Aid to the schools, aid to transportation.
Yep.
And with that, I will let Adam segue into a review of the regional school district budget.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes,
Yes, Adam, how are we doing?
oh, geez, I have the results. As you know, you were with me at the
I was.
the school committee meeting prior to this one when there was 5 budget scenarios. But what happened at that meeting, as you know, the school committee decided to go with the scenario number 4, if you look at the memo I wrote. But they added middle school Spanish teacher to that, increase with level service. So that's what brought it shortfall to $1,016,354. But our portion, now they didn't vote on this. There was an agreement or consensus, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
because they still want to get feedback from the all boards meeting when we meet Monday. So,
Now, this is minus, I mean, Phillipson's 20% share, I would assume, right?
correct,
Well,
yes,
it's down the
correct, Mr.
bottom.
Chairman, it's.
Oh, yeah.
So our portion at the end would be $854,042 if this is the number that they move forward and vote on. This is
Yeah.
a consensus number so far, so this is what Templeton's portion would be,
Potentially,
potentially.
I got you.
But they were talking discussion in the sense of Monday, at 5 PM at the library, when both the Phillipston and Templeton Select Board, I believe advisory too, will be there, so that's where we will see where the discussion goes. I just wanted to provide the memo. I attended all the meetings that I could, and,
You've attended several, and I thank you for all your memos because they were very thorough and detailed.
I appreciate it, thank you so
You're
much.
welcome. It gave good insight to me. So, at first, they were gonna go with scenario number 4, but now they're more concerned, they're agreeing to move forward, or their consensus was scenario number 6.
Yes, scenario number 4 was what they were discussing at the
the
meeting that
last
Mr.
meeting.
Kaplis and I were at, Chairman Kaplis and I. And then, that's when they added the new scenario number 6,
Adding a teacher.
adding the teacher, because they don't have a Spanish teacher for the middle schools, and some of the committee members were concerned about that, so it's a level service with the adding of the middle school Spanish teacher.
Could you go into a little more detail of their concern over who would initiate the override conversation?
That was,
That was at the meeting before,
Yes,
of January
well,
31st.
the concern was basically, they wanted to know who would initiate the override. They thought that they would initiate the override, and
They thought that they would.
yeah,
So
Margaret
they
Hughes
finally-
made it
Okay.
clear that it's really, that wouldn't be initiated by
Oh,
them.
all right, there was just the concern, I just wanted to understand what you meant by that.
But there,
And
there was
then-
concern about the overrides that expressed.
Like what kind of concern?
Well, who would initiate it, with the budget scenario. Honestly, there wasn't any really talk on scenario number 1 or 2 where you see the shortfall being significantly higher. I think there is concern. They know that the town's paying close attention, and there's, so in that sense, you
Go
know,
ahead.
they saw both of us at the last meeting, at this past meeting I was at, the advisory chairman, Jeff Bennett, was at as well, so the town's paying attention, and
Last year, we had lengthy conversations with them because they wanted significant additional funds, and we gave them above and beyond what we normally would. And there was a meeting in the Kiva, and we were all there, and Carter expressly said to them, next year, you will receive no additional funds from us, meaning 0. No, I mean, we would give them their, normal.
Oh, no, Carter said no.
Well,
It's 0.
they get
Why? Yeah,
additional 0.
but they're already 20% above net minimum school spending.
Well, they would get their net minimum, their net
And
spending.
they'd have to absorb it off the extra.
And then everything else, they would have to ask for an override. Carter specifically said that to them. And they were, And now this year, I'm not really sure. I wanted to know if any of the conversation focused around that, because you can go right onto YouTube, and I don't remember the date, but I remember exactly where I was sitting and who was sitting where. And Carter was right there and said, 0, you get your minimum, and that's it. I mean, he was very clear on what would happen, and I don't know if that conversation was forgotten.
I can speak that they have utilized their school choice revolving fund. I
They
mean,
did the same last year and the year before,
and the
just like
EED.
we have. We use up all our,
But I think the discussion really is up to the select board where they want to go with the regional school committee.
We've sacrificed a lot over the years, no different than they have.
Absolutely.
They've made a lot of cuts through the years, but, we've sacrificed a police officer every year. We laid off, for how many weeks, John, do you remember? Like 6,
It was
how
2
many?
months, almost 2 months.
15 weeks, we laid off almost every worker, here, when we had a $500,000 deficit. We had 6 meetings, override, no. And they ended up, that's when we had to cut, lay everyone off. I mean, I don't know what to say. For those overrides, there's a whole host of issues that went along with that, and things were tough then. Things were tough. It's hard to, know which side of the fence to fall on, but they've always had to make some tough choices, and, they've always come through. We've had to come through, but this time around, they have to go for the whole amount, the whole enchilada.
My question, Carter, can you explain the process? For instance, the school provides us with a bill, say it's $1 million. We don't agree. It goes to town floor, the town floor doesn't agree. Can you tell me and obviously the folks that are watching us that obviously the state comes in and what the state will then do based on the research that they'll research the town and research the school. Not that we will get what we want, but they probably won't get what they want either, but how that works.
So, let me use another district, and I'll leave them unnamed if you don't mind.
Please.
But very similar, the community was getting $300,000 and the school district needed $800,000. And I'm not gonna quarrel that, this is what they need to provide a quality education.
Right, that's not,
To the youngsters. And I do wanna recognize that the process this year was very open. We were able to be at all the meetings. We had the benefit of being able to send Adam, who was able to write a briefing memo and keep you all. So I think process-wise, this was awesome.
Yeah,
And I
it was
really
awesome.
I really want to recognize the school district and thank them for that. So in this other community where the school district saw and understood that if they adopted the budget as they thought it was needed, the community simply could not absorb it.
Mhm.
And the school district actually made an agreement with the community. If you will put an override on the ballot for what we're asking you for, and if the vote override is not approved, we will cut our budget to X
Mhm.
number. So that was understood going in. And the override passed. And life was good for the 365-day cycle of a budget
Right.
until the challenge next year. But actually, they were able to work things out for about 3-4 years in a row without needing to do it again. If the override had not passed, they would have had to cut services and absorb that extra into some of that net minimum school spending. So that instead of being about 22% over net minimum school spending, they would have been closer to about 16%. So now let's take the situation in which there is not a gentleman's agreement along those lines. And the school district sends you a number, and town meeting, and I have something I want to circle back on overrides for a moment. Remember, you are the ones who have to put the override on the
Yes.
ballot.
Right.
So let's say that there is not a gentleman's and gentlelady's agreement along those lines, and they settle on a number and they send it to you. If town meeting votes it, that's it. It's done. If the two town meetings vote it, it's done. And Phillipston does have excess tax capacity, I believe, to absorb this number if they wish to do that. If either town meeting votes down, the schools have to come back to you with a second budget, and I forget the exact number of days, 45 days or something like that. And that budget can be exactly the same budget, it can be a smaller budget, or it can be a larger budget. And if it passes once again, they go into a 1/12 budget cycle.
That's right.
That budget is set by the Department of Education,
Mm-hmm.
DESE now.
Desi, yep.
And in the instance I'm referring to, they actually set the number higher than what the school committee had sought. Because the interesting thing is, the net minimum school spending, the amount of money necessary to provide a minimum and adequate education, the formula that they use to pay you on, somehow gets thrown out the window when DESE sets the budget that they say you need.
Mm-hmm.
It's not pretty.
You
It's
start,
not.
you start
But I
with,
want- But there's another piece of this
you
that I
start
want you
with
to
that
explain.
budget, and then you can come back for another meeting, but that's when both communities sit together as one community in one common location.
That's where we went to.
And-
That's how it passed.
The majority vote of that carries the day.
Mhm.
So none of these are pretty. Certainly, I don't wanna, I appreciate that they're not looking to reverse course. They're throwing their school choice in, they're throwing in
Right.
their reserves. We stood pretty firm last year of no, we were not gonna go back to using free cash.
Because we have a
I-
financial policy that says that
I
we
don't- I don't
can't.
wanna be the guy next year on the other end of the telephone line with Moody saying,
No,
oh yeah, how'd you balance your budget this year? Oh, I tapped my free cash.
yeah, we just got an
I
A1
don't wanna be in
rating.
that position. So this is challenging, it's not gonna be an easy conversation.
Now,
I
I
will,
also, not to interrupt you, but I
Yep, yep.
also read that obviously, if this does happen, something like that scenario that you just said, and that we don't come, and obviously whatever Darcy says, and the Department of Revenue is also involved somehow, some way, because obviously that would potentially affect our rating as well, our tax rate. They can effectively increase our tax rate, almost like having an override without having the people.
Well, the challenge is they won't set a tax rate till it's all resolved.
I understand that, but what I'm saying is that they can come back and say the tax rate's gonna be this now because of this, without going in front of the people.
They still have to fit into the cap. They can't take you outside the tax levy limit.
I understand that, but you know as well as I do that there's gonna be some room there, based on the need of this education.
The DOR didn't get involved last time and it was a mess.
Yeah,
They didn't come.
the only thing that they would do would be, you don't have a budget, we can't set a tax rate. When
Right.
you and the school district are all done,
Right.
and you
Then
can
we'll set
send
the tax
us
rate.
a recap sheet that's balanced, we'll be happy to talk to you.
Okay.
That's the only thing that they do. Now, there is one mechanical step involved in all this. The state did pass legislation that allows a community, by vote of its chief executive officer, the select board, to put together informational flyers, leaflets, advertisements, and others under the guidance of town council. So you know how you get that booklet from the Secretary of State?
Yeah.
In which, here's the question, here's a pro, here's a con. You can now do that legally in Massachusetts if you adopt this statute. Now, I wasn't aware of it last spring when we were doing the override and the debt exclusion votes. That is something we'll probably bring you in the next few weeks and ask you to vote upon it. We sent it to the school district because we didn't know if they might wish to put together informational materials. And I don't know the status of that, but that's something we'll probably put on your agenda in the next week.
And again, I want to be perfectly clear too. It's not that I'm not against the school at all. I think everything, like you said, is going
Me either.
quite well. I think, I have 3 children in the process in the school system. I have one graduating next year, one in 9th grade and one in 2nd grade. And I have one on deck that will be there in about 3-4 years from now. So I have some longevity here in this, and so I don't want to hurt the school in any way, shape, or form. But when you look at the numbers as a whole, as you guys formulate the budget, and you look at a 16 million plus or minus budget for the town, dollars that we receive for the town, and you look at now they're looking at between a 23 and a $23.5 million school budget. That's pretty. And again, that's not saying that it's not worth every cent that we have to put in, but when it's going to impact the services of the community, that's where I start having some issues.
Well, the other thing that, we all need to keep in mind, and we need to get the community to understand, and I think this is a failing of debt exclusions in general. Folks excluded the debt to construct the new elementary school,
Mm-hmm.
but there was no companion article
Right.
to pay the added operational costs. So this building is substantially larger in square footage.
Mm-hmm.
That has to be taken care of, janitors. And the savings when you close the one school have already been sucked into the budget.
Well,
So now you need those.
Well, let's go back. They're going to in the process of closing 3 schools. So all 3 schools' budgets were absorbed, between $300,000 to $500,000 of utilization of electric, water, and sewer over the course of X amount of years. And obviously, nothing was saved because they had to absorb it into their budget, and I understand that. And obviously, the Balderville Elementary School, when that's closed, that dollars, I'm sure, is going
Those
to be
dollars
absorbed.
can flow over,
I'm
but they don't compare because this building's 90,000 square feet.
Yes,
Baldwinville's far less.
it is.
You've got one janitor, you need a minimum of 2.
Well, and these are
Everything's
discussions.
smart boards instead of chalkboards.
Right, and these are discussions we need to have, because again, we talk about staffing and how staffing works, and, and again, I'm not a big supporter, but I did have the opportunity to look at a couple things that specifically, jaunted my mind. So the school's gonna hire, say, 2 additional janitors, which again, when you hire janitors, you know, they're being paid by the school district, which they're gonna have a retirement and benefits and all that stuff. So why don't they go to a contract cleaning company? Which will be, so we don't have the large overhead costs. I mean, again, this is just, I'm just spitballing here.
I've always been very careful, and I would suggest you think about suggestions you might make to them, because they don't want someone coming into their house and telling them how to manage their budget
Yeah,
any more than we would want them
Oh,
coming into our
sure,
house
Absolutely.
and
I'm
telling
sure they've
us
looked at all
how to
that.
manage our
I mean,
budget. I mean, it's simply a matter of resources. We understand you need these resources. We understand this great new building drives, I'll bet it drives 45 to 50% of this
Mhm.
number.
Well, at least $500,000.
They operate no different than we do on somewhat of a bare bones. They've made a lot of cuts in the middle school, the high school, the elementary school. They've operated with a minimum amount of teachers. They've, you know, I mean, if you walk around the school, it's just, I get it. It's just, we don't have that kind of money. We never have that kind of money, and we somehow have to make it work. But this year, we just can't. We've operated with too few people.
Right.
And we just, you know, we said it last year, you know, we kind of drew our line in the sand, and it's not that we don't support the school. We've always supported the school.
Right.
The override funds that were given is a gentleman's agreement, and we've never squabbled about that. Here you go, here you go, here you go, here you go.
Right.
Because we could have kept that money after the first year. We never
Absolutely.
have.
Nope.
We never have. So, and yes, we didn't pay our target share, but we're caught up now. And we-
What is that, I mean, how are we
Do
on
you
that
wanna
target
explain
share?
I
that?
don't have the net new minimum school spending
I don't remember,
numbers.
but we're caught up.
we'll
I know
get
we are, but I
those.
like to see where we are.
I forget.
We'll try to get that for you.
Thank you.
We'll try to
But
have that
we
in the next
do-
couple of days.
I support them. I will not speak for the rest of the board. But we need to ensure that now where we're somewhat on solid footing, we have a good rating, we have good policies, we've been moving forward, we're in a good place, and I'd like to stay that way.
Absolutely.
And nobody said we're gonna, you know, we're sitting on millions of dollars, but we got a good rating because of all the things that we've done, and I wanna make sure that we keep it that way.
Absolutely. I'm agreeing with
And
that.
that helps the school, and it helps everyone all the way around.
Sure it does.
I can also add
Yes.
to what Carter already mentioned. To
Adam, could you speak up just a little? I
Yeah,
do have my hearing aids.
No, I
on,
just
but-
want to go off what Carter already mentioned about the previous cost of district for custodial supplies with the Baldwin now to the Templeton Center. It looks like total cost of district went from $6,000 for custodial supplies to $21,000, so that increased to $27,000 for the total cost of district. Heating oil, previous cost of district $37,000, additional cost $77,750 for a total cost of district of $114,750. Electricity, previous cost to the district $15,000, additional cost $55,000, total cost of district $70,000. Elevator, which they had previous cost district 0, now is $5,000, so that's now total cost of $5,000. And yeah, I just
On
wanted.
and on and
And
on.
on and on and on. Right, I got you.
But that is very important that people understand that most likely, half of this, 45% of this is about opening the new school.
Right,
Right.
right.
I got that with my smartphone.
Now, what would be the process? Now, what would happen if we had a delay opening the new school because of lack of funding?
That would just cost us more money.
I'm just throwing it out there. I mean, because
Yeah,
people
we
need to
have
know
the
where we are.
RFP.
Time is money.
sure is.
And the RFP, and there have already been things that are set in motion.
Mhm.
So,
It's challenging to build, I mean, it's happened. Somerville built a brand-new
Yes.
fire station.
Yep.
And 1 year later closed it.
That's right.
It's challenging to explain to people. This will be an interesting conversation Monday night.
Right.
And as I think everyone here would agree, they do a great job with what they have. It's just a lack of resources to take care of everyone's needs do
Understood.
not appear to be on the near horizon.
Okay, no, just curious. Okay. Anything else on that? Adam, you have anything else?
No, I think we've pretty much.
Thank you,
covered
Adam,
it all.
Hey,
for all
thank you.
your hard
Thank
work
you.
and your memos.
And again, the meeting is Monday?
Monday, 5 PM,
Gotta make sure I wrote
in
that
the library at the high school, I believe.
I'll just
We'll
double,
have a reminder on the weekly
yeah, I'll be in the library.
report.
That's the 11th, right?
Yes, sir.
You got that right?
Yep.
Backspace.
Okay, great, thank you.
Adam?
Was this Adam's, yeah?
Thank you.
So if you don't mind, John, since we don't have any audience here, and I'll probably be faster if not pacing, I'll do it from the chair.
Please.
Number of months ago, you asked us to look into the viability and the merits of transferring the collection of sewer receivables to the Office of the Treasurer Collector. It's taken substantially longer than we had thought it would take, and I think in the full report that you have, you saw some of the various exchanges between us and the commission and their staff, which kind of illustrate for you why it took so long, and I do apologize, but I think you'll see why this happened. So Holly, I'm just gonna ask you to hit enter as I sort of hit the end. You can just use the regular enter button on that, that'll do it
Oh.
too. So, why, for the public, just kind of a refresher, why did we do this study? Well, over the past 15 years, there have been 3 separate and independent entities which have recommended this. One of the earliest was and most forceful was in 2009 from the Massachusetts Department of Revenue, when it conducted a review of your financial management practices, and it said, as a matter of sound financial management practice, those responsible for determining the payments due the town should not also be charged with collecting those payments. Luann prepares the tax bills, she doesn't collect the money.
Right.
We recommend separating and creating the commitment that authorizes the collection of charges from the collection function. So if you just, who else said this? Well, starting in the early 2000s, and then again in their 2012 audit, town audit firm, Melanson and Heath, said that we recommend the town segregate duties by transferring collection to the collector's office. At that time, 7 years ago now, the town said that the necessary action will be taken prior to the end of the calendar year to correct this significant deficiency. That necessary action, as we all know, was never taken. And yet another audit firm, Roselli and Clark, when they compiled your FY13 to FY16 audit, cited as a significant material weakness in your internal controls that the town relies on the receivables reporting from the sewer department, which does not permit the town to fully perform its fiduciary responsibility. In the FY17 audit, they subsequently still stated that sewer collections are still completely handled without any input from the collector. This does not allow for proper monitoring of accounts and continues to be a controlled deficiency. What are they gonna say Wednesday night when they come to you? Effectively the same thing all over again. Now, what's behind this drive are 2 key phrases: internal controls and reconciliations. Now, the Office of the Inspector General, while it was not commenting on Templeton in particular, generically says across the state that segregation of duties is key to internal control and reducing risk. And we're not looking to cast aspersion on anyone, because we don't believe anyone is doing anything wrong, but it is a matter of best practice and generally accepted accounting that these tasks are separated. In fact, I think we gave you some screenshots. Adam successfully completed the first of several of his training course for the Chapter 30B program, and I think we gave you some screenshots out of that training manual. Now, with respect to reconciliations, the town for many years just simply accepted what sewer gave them and kind of adjusted it. We did away with that about, 15, 18 months ago, when we created the monthly reconciliations that we ask you all to sign off on. Now, we're getting closer, but I can't even imagine how many hours Kelly and the team have put into trying to get there, but we still aren't there. And more importantly, we still have no way of being there. Now, in addition to the issues that have been pointed out by the Office of the Inspector General, the Department of Revenue, 2 separate independent audit firms, the finance team points out that the current process is really challenging from the sewer liens. Everything comes up on paper. Everything has to be transferred out of current receivables to a lien receivable, a process that's only happened the past 2 years and still has challenges when they're in the process of transferring it to liens, because when a payment gets accepted, it gets credited. It shouldn't have been. The other thing, if you could just back up for a moment, please, Holly, that you, in the sewers, just hit, yeah, perfect, thank you. The other thing is in terms of cash flow. Because we are not tied into their accounting, when a real estate attorney comes to us to get the municipal lien certificates, which is the status of the payment of all town accounts, at present, they only get real estate and personal property if that's included in the sale. If we were tied together, the municipal lien certificate would also capture the amount of sewer receivables outstanding and perhaps modestly, I don't want to overblow this, but modestly improve the cash flow by getting some added dollars in at the closings. Thanks, Holly. Now, currently, the sewer department prints, folds, hand stuffs, and posts 1,450 bills each quarter. That's the best we can sort out, because as you saw, they did not respond to our request for information. Further, they did not respond to our requests for information about what their labor and materiel cost was. So what we did was we kind of thought about what is the closest activity another town department might do that would give us some sense of how much material is involved and how many hours, and we use the town's census. And I don't know if we included some of those exchanges with Carol or not, but basically we went through, okay, how many census do you do? How long does it take you to print them, to fold them, to stuff them? What's your postage? What's your materiel costs? And so this may be off a little bit, but in the absence of having anything else, we're reasonably comfortable that we can project it costs about $4,200 a year and takes about 100 plus or minus hours a year to do this manually. The collections are done at the sewer plant. We could not determine if demand notices are mailed out if in the combined system, if we were collecting them here, and if the sewer commissioners wanted us to, because there is some cost involved. You send out a demand notice each month, adding the interest and just reminding folks. Currently, there's 54 hours of administrative support time. That's going to go to 59 and a half in fiscal 20. Now, interestingly, the comparisons that we saw, the administrative support team for similar situations is actually one full-time equivalent, of roughly 40 hours a week, as opposed to the time that we have. Now, the bottom line is that in fiscal '20, the cost to the sewer user of the current system is about $78,000. Now, that $78,000 expenditure still fails to address the lack of internal controls, which have been cited as posing a significant deficiency to the town's accounting. It fails to address significant weakness in the lien process. There have been improvements. I don't want to tell you that there haven't been improvements, but even after all the effort, there remains significant weakness in the process. It fails to take advantage of the opportunity to improve collections through the use of the municipal lien certificates. It fails to take advantage of synergies within the organization, which in simple terms is 1 + 1 is 3. When you have more of a critical mass, you can often do a slightly smaller. It's not all cumulative. There's cross-training and you can take advantage of things. It fails to comply with the requirements of the town's bylaws. Article 5, Section 1 says that the collector of taxes shall collect all accounts due the town. And that's kind of where we're going to close out in a few moments here. So we took kind of like from a ground up look. A billing, if the sewer department was to use our printing vendor, the costs actually go down, and they adopted the same town practice as we adopted, which is no more return envelopes. And by the way, we have not had nary an objection to that. And you'll recall we went through an analysis of how many people pay online, how many people actually use those envelopes. So going to Globe Direct, whereby they print and mail the bills, and you get the bulk postage, yes, you're paying them 15.5 cents to print it, but they're mailing it out at today's rates 13 cents less than you're paying to mail the stuff. It would save $1,000 a year, and it frees up 100 staff hours. And we all have things on our to-do lists that some extra staff time would work, or you reduce your staffing and you save approximately $2,000 a year. Now, keep in mind that modest change, to us, internal change in practice that bears some consideration, does not address any of the failings of the current practice that we just spoke about on the previous slide. The collection process itself, so we wanted to get behind this and say, okay, so what else is going on out there? Are we really, just not seeing this right? 7 of our comparison communities collect at the Treasurer Collector's Office. Only 1 collects at a consolidated DPW office. 1 doesn't have a sewer system at all, and 1 did fail to respond. So the bottom line here is that the majority, 7 out of 10, follow, actually 7 out of 9, because 1 does not even have a sewer system. So the vast majority follow the Department of Revenue and audit recommended practice, and I dare say that the finance team and I are looking to do the same. So what are the costs to bring this in-house? So first, we have to acquire the VADAR utility module, and we have to get a historic file that would be produced as a readable PDF or as a Excel spreadsheet where all the history going back would be electronically maintained. And then you get an export file, which basically consists of name of the account holder, identifying number, and the balance as of a given day. Now, that has a cost of around $10,000, could turn out to be about 12. That floats a little bit, in part because you have to see the quality of the data and what's involved. But given that we're looking simply for an export file, we're not looking to convert all of the historic data. That's where it really can come off the rails. And I've left you some meeting memos to the sewer commissioners and some minutes of their meetings at which it was agreed that if this was to happen, and they're not at all in support of this, that a readable PDF or Excel file would meet their needs. So you have that historic record without getting into a lot of money to try to import all the data. And again, just all the things that it fails to do, it now does do. However, I will acknowledge that if that's all you do, it basically takes about a 17-year payback, which no company that I know of would invest $10,000 to save $600 a year and wait 17 years to get their money back. So, what's the second cost? Well, obviously, we would want to recover the cost of our collection staff, and that's where the synergy comes in. We have the staff. We do not need additional staff because of the way we've restructured the office. We'd obviously would like to coordinate due dates, if at all possible, so that the sewer bills aren't coming due on August 1, which is the same day property taxes are due. You try to work that out so that the workload's a little bit smoother as opposed to it all coming in on one day. If you could go back for a moment, please, Holly. The treasurer collector's wages, the assistant treasurer, insurance, the regional retirement system, the OPEB, it's all there, and it's $152,241. We did not, and we carried the employee support. That's the training, the membership, the various things. But everything else in the office, their paper, their envelopes, they're paying to print their property tax bills. None of that would be apportioned to sewer, because that would just totally be improper. It's the costs and the support of the employee support of the staff that's the only appropriate cost to distribute. So, of that $152,241, how do you recover it? Well, first, how much of their $152,241 is spent on the collection process in general? Greeting the customers at the counter, opening the mail, taking the checks out, scanning the checks, balancing all those payments at the end of the day, getting that money to the bank. Consensus seemed to be, I talked with Cheryl, I talked with 3 other treasure collectors that I've worked with, and they said, geez, that's an interesting question. I get asked that a lot. And generally, I tell people that ask me it's 70 to 75%. We settled on 70%. So, how much of the 70% would the sewer commission be asked to pay to the general fund for these services we propose to provide them? You take the $152,241, you multiply it by 70%, and you multiply it by 17.98%, which is roughly $19,000. So where did we get the 17.98%? Well, I suppose if you were Speedy Taylor back in the day, one of the nation's first efficiency experts, you would do a detailed workflow analysis. But you have to have the work in order to do that workflow analysis. And there are 2 pretty straightforward methods. You can look at how much money's collected. Well, in this case, we're collecting, $11.4 million in real estate and personal property, $1.05 million in excise tax, $1.05 million roughly in sewer bills. So of the monies that's collected across the counter, roughly 7.5%, 7.76 here for this math, is in sewer bills. We also looked at the number of transactions because, frankly, it takes just as much time to accept a quarterly sewer bill of, I don't know, $138, $158 as it does to collect a $700 real estate bill. So, based upon the best numbers we can come up with, there's roughly 17,000 real estate and personal property tax bills, 9,500 excise tax bills, and based upon what we believe to be 1,450 sewer connections, you'd have 5,800 sewer bills in a year, 32,000 bills. You divide that out, it's 17.98. We believe the number of transactions is the most appropriate method to distribute these costs. So now we've laid out a number of options. You know, what are the costs? The current practice, best we can sort out going into FY20 would be around 78,000. If the sewer department were to contract out the billing, it's around 78,000, so roughly a $1,000 savings. If it adjusted the staffing, 75,000 and change, so roughly a $2,600 savings. If they, adjusted, but didn't adjust their staff, all they did was adjust the part-time staff, their costs go to $94,000. Now that obviously doesn't make any sense to maintain all their staff and pay us to collect the bills. That just doesn't make good sense. I certainly wouldn't do that, and I wouldn't ask them to do that. If they chose an option by which they kept one full-time staff member, the costs are around $80,000. That's about roughly $2,500 more than where they are. If that's where they want to be, I think that the town certainly could adjust the $19,000 to keep them whole because of all the advantages to the community taxpayer and to the accounting system. If they do what we've had to do, which are hard decisions, but you've made them, and you want to have one full-time equivalent because you want that redundancy, you want that second person trained on how to produce the bill, you want that second person catching phone calls, processing invoices and whatever, so you go to 2 part-time staff, which is exactly what we did in the treasurer collector's office when we made all those changes. The cost dropped to $58,000, which is roughly a $20,000 savings to the sewer users while providing a roughly $20,000 input to the taxpayer to support that administrative staff that is so important be kept. You saw what happened when you did try to operate without proper and adequate financial staff. Now, 2 caveats. This would reduce the OPEB liability to the sewer fund by roughly $25,000. And the Worcester Regional Retirement System cost really depends upon final staffing. Because depending upon who stayed, if somebody decided they wanted to leave for a different full-time job, they really couldn't do part-time. When you go from full-time to part-time and you're already a member of the regional retirement system, you have to stay in the regional retirement system. So the, if you had a $15,000 employee that had to stay in the system, it's about a 23% uptick. So there's 3,000, so that $20,000 savings goes down to around 16, 17. It's not inconsequential, but it is a bit of a wild card. So you've got these different options that we've laid out, and they have some pluses and they have some minuses. Option 1 is if the department were to use our vendor for printing their bills, they'd save at least $1,000 and 100 staff hours. That could be put in place with 4 weeks. It does not address any of the accounting deficiencies that have been noted or talked about. There is an additional $1,500, $2,000 savings if the part-time staff is reduced by these 100 staff hours that are we believe would be saved. On option 2, the outside billing with current staffing, collections move to the treasurer collector. It actually costs the sewer user $16K a year. They still have to pay for that capital. Now, I don't know how strong a possibility it is, but given what I saw as best practices and given how really strongly interested DOR is, and given how much of a role this comment has played in your audits, there is a possibility we might be able to get that paid for by a community compact grant. The timeline, it really needs to be 60 days, and it really needs to be a July 1 conversion date. July 15 maybe, depends on when bills go out, but it has to be a end of year going into the new year. You don't do it in the middle of a year. I think y'all had way too much fun when you tried that back in 13 or 14. I don't get a sense anybody has an appetite to do that again. And this addresses all of the internal control and reconciliation deficiencies and the finance team issues that we've identified. I do want to tell you that reconciliation is not a switch that you just flip, but if you can get the reconciliations down to where it's the same number at the, over a number of months, you carry that on your audit, the next year it's the same number, the next year it's the same number, then you wipe it out and you're done, you write it off. But they fluctuate every month so wildly, that's not possible. Now, in addition to improving the collection with the municipal lien certificates, getting the demands out, right now, the sewer staff goes to the bank. We go to the bank. So if the sewer staff's no longer going to the bank, that time is saved for them. And us going to the bank doesn't take us any longer, in large part because we don't go to the bank as often. Because Cheryl incorporated a check scanning system. The checks go through the scanner, they're imaged, they're saved for 60 days, I think, and then destroyed, unless there's a question about them. So our trips to the bank have been dramatically, well, they have been reduced. I don't want to, oversell this, but they've been reduced. So there's added time and security saved on the bank runs. Option number 3, use outside billing, eliminate the single part-time staff with the collections coming to the treasurer collector. It improves the cash flow as in option number 2. This is where you keep one full-time staff. You don't have the second part-timer, but it does not address the desire for redundancy in staffing. So when we've blended some other offices, you had a half-time, you had a part-time highway clerk, 2/3 time, you had a half-time sewer clerk, and then you had a full-time water clerk. When all those people were put together in one office, we're actually able to give them redundancy in staffing. Because when that half-time sewer clerk was out, nobody could do the sewer bills. When that 2/3 highway clerk was out, nobody could do the Chapter 90 stuff. And when the full-time water clerk was out, nobody could do that. But when you put the two people together in the same office, we're able to actually reduce hours, cross-train, and get redundancy. So having a single full-time person does not address the desire the sewer commission has for redundancy, something I would agree with them on. So option 4 saves the sewer user roughly that $20,000 a year, gives a 6-month payback on that roughly $10K capital, and that could turn out to be 11, it could turn out to be 12. Unfortunately, Doug's deployed enough software, he's seen enough things, you never know exactly. I don't think we're talking about, double and triple. The OPEB liabilities are reduced by 25. It still takes 60 days. It still addresses all the deficiencies. It provides that redundancy in staffing because you have 2 part-time people. Now that's challenging, managing offices with part-time staff, recruiting them, sustaining them. But it does provide substantial savings to the sewer user and substantial benefits to the taxpayer. One more, please, Holly. So, one option costs the sewer users real money, but 3 others save money or are break even at the worst. So, where does the opposition come from? Well, in the end of the day, you have to deal with real people and their real lives. It's not always easy to walk into an office, whether it was Carl, if you'll remember when we reduced him, whether it was the treasurer's office when we reorganized that. It's not always easy to walk in and say, or the Council on Aging when we did away with the bookkeeper and we reorganized all the drivers. It's not always easy to walk into an office and say, I'm sorry, but our business needs are such that we have to make these steps. And then it's about turf. Well, there's other things that you should work on. And I guess, my answer to that is you can't let perfect become the enemy of better. And we have been addressing many of these things. This is one of the oldest things that's been on the checklist. And it's one of the things that poses, one of the greatest risks to you. And it has the most immediate payback, both to the sewer user and to the taxpayer. Frankly, yes. We're not looking to take their money for just to grab it, but if we're providing a service, the auditors have said it, DOR has said it, we should be getting paid from the enterprise funds for the services we provide to that enterprise fund. And I know that there's, always, the light department's separate. Well, they are separate. It's the statute. And the town chose to make the water department part of the light department. That's our study. We're sticking to it.
Nice job.
And we need to have a sense of how you'd like us to proceed, whether you want to take some time to think it over. Kelly's worked on this throughout with me. I'm sure you have lots of questions. You've had an opportunity. I think the report's some 20-plus pages long. A bunch of it is, addendums and notes and memos. But we'd be happy to try to answer any questions or get you answers to any questions that you might have.
Do you have any questions?
No, I already know how I want to proceed, but you can.
Do you have any questions?
Not really questions, I just want to comment, though, that, satisfying that the audit requirements and the DOR, recommendations is, proof enough that it's worthwhile. You gotta have, if you can't prove that your, accounting is solid, accurate, and, meets, the
Best business practice.
the best business practice, then you're just asking for trouble. I mean, and through the study, they've come up with, here's your savings. So we've now put hard numbers that are really positive savings, and we're satisfying a lot of deficiencies that, again, have been being pointed out to us since 2009, almost 10 years.
15.
Actually, even
15.
before that,
It's
with
15.
Melanson and Heath.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
But yeah, before that, I looked through them all. It's been a long time.
So I definitely have some questions or definitely some concerns. Obviously you sent RFIs down with no response.
We
That's definitely a concern for me.
You invited them to meetings too.
I have invited them to meetings as well. In fact, I invited them to this meeting as well, so they would actually be able to answer questions or have comments or some dialogue between the departments, the commissioners, as well as the Board of Selectmen, so we're all on the same page. They are a town department. It's the department of, it's this it's a department of the town. I mean, we're not trying to make things up. We're trying to do things and make it better for everybody. This talk that I keep hearing that, we wanna take their money is, I was gonna swear, it's not right. It would never happen. It's not what we wanna do. We wanna make it better and follow the bylaws, follow our business practices that we put in place, follow the policies that we've put in place, that they need to follow. I mean, they are a department of the town. They are employees of the town. Do they get paid by an enterprise fund? Yes. By the sewer users? Yes. It's a pot of gold, it's a management, and it's a way that we manage money.
It's just the way to manage
It's just another pot. It doesn't matter that they're still a department of the town. So I don't understand why they can't understand that, and we're not trying to hurt them. We're trying to help them and make things right based on what the audit companies are saying, what the Department of Revenue is saying, et cetera, et cetera. I just don't, it really,
I think it's important that the viewers understand that an enterprise fund
yes,
is a accounting technique so that all of the costs of that utility are borne by all of the revenues of that utility, and any surplus or deficit is owned by that utility. Now, bear in mind, if there is a deficit, you, the general fund,
that's right.
have to cover that,
Right.
as happened just last spring, I think it was,
In
in
Ashburnham.
Ashburnham.
Yes, it did.
Also, that there have been, since '07, 3 legal opinions rendered, and I know that, some folks will say, well, everybody has their opinion. The '07 legal opinion is from Koppelman and Page. I don't know if they were KP law then, referred specifically to pay raises. The sewer commissioner had granted some pay raises, and the personnel board at that time and the select board rolled them back.
They took them away.
And Koppelman and Page rendered an opinion on that.
Mhm.
There's an '08 legal opinion from the Department of Revenue that speaks pretty clearly to the independence and lack of independence of the sewer department with respect to a number of their functions. And then there is, at their request, most recently, a third legal opinion from current town council. So you have to follow the accounting. You can't just take money unless they owe a bill.
Right.
So if you rendered them a service, and in this case, I would consider these direct costs,
Mhm.
Indirect costs are apportioned separately. I don't know.
Now, you and I both know, I mean, obviously, I don't think that anything is going wrong in the sense that there's some type of, malpractice thing or something going on down there that's really not appropriate. I'm not saying that at all.
We're not suggesting
I
there's
am
any
not.
misfeasance or
I'm
malfeasance.
not. But what concerns me is the fact that, I mean, if they can't see what the town is trying to do, and they keep digging their heels in the sand, what is that gonna show the other people? The other users, or the other residents of the community? What would that, obviously, I could tell you what it's gonna show me. Obviously, that potentially something's trying to be hidden, which I don't think there is. Let's make that clear. I don't think that there is. But, if we keep going down this road, what's the impression? And again, perception is reality, folks. Perception's reality. So what would the perception be to the users of the town and the other taxpayers in town if once they see this, once this document gets out, which I believe it's out now, and it was sent to the sewer commissioners and I think the superintendent already, what would the other people think? What would your perception be as a resident in this community?
Checks and balances.
It's about checks and balances. It's not just about knowing or thinking we're gonna take somebody's money or departments. That's not the case. It's about our checks and balance. The people that send out the bills shouldn't be receiving the money. every department has said that. Department of Revenue, the audit companies, the lawyers. I mean, everybody said the same thing, but why is it so
Inspector General's
difficult?
office?
The IGs, why is it so difficult? I mean, I invited them here tonight, and yet I'm gonna get slapped in the face. It's very disrespectful. If I was invited to their meeting, any one of us, you bet your butt we would be there. And I have been, when I've been invited. But yet I'm being disgraced here and being disrespected. I don't like that.
So I do want to say that when we had this conversation with them down there in June, we told them that we would send them the study before it went public. I did send it to, we had one commission member that was kind of our liaison in all of this. I did send him the study for review. He was not gonna be able to be present in February meeting, and he suggested it might be March until it be considered. I told him that I thought that perhaps 6 weeks to sit without sharing it with this board might just not be realistic. So I did ask if there were any errors of fact, because I'm always concerned about that, and we didn't get any notification that there were. Now, that's not to say that there weren't, because we did try to involve them throughout the process, because we wanted to have as best information provide you. So some of this is, it's estimates, it's best guess, it's swag, scientific, wild arse guess, as opposed to just plain guesses. I mean, I would call them guesstimates. I think we've laid out for you how we developed all this information. So there's gonna be a little bit of variation, there always is. And there could be a hiccup, we deployed the new payroll software, and yeah, it didn't go right the first week. But it went right the second week, and it's been going right since then.
Right.
So.
Well, let's say for the record anyways, you did send an email to the superintendent on Wednesday, January 30th of 2019, around 10:30 in the morning, which I'm looking at right now. So, at least that was sent, again, January 30th. What's today's date?
The 6th.
The February 6th. Okay, so they had it at least a week before this meeting, okay. All right, and any response from that, email?
No, sir.
Okay. What's the best practice going forward now? I mean, do we need to meet with the Department of Revenue again? And what would be the best course of action at this point?
Well, I guess what I would ask, if you would like, we could put it on the agenda next week, and you could give me some formal direction
Okay.
as to proceed to take all appropriate steps to try to implement or something. We'll come up with a motion that makes some sense, but hopefully isn't too nuclear.
Do you have a
in terms
general
of it.
idea of?
Well, we have to
What
follow,
we would
we're not,
like?
we're not following the bylaw, number one, which we need to. I mean, again, the people always tell us all the time, and I'm always getting corrected, and I thank everybody for sending me emails, telling me how sometimes messed up I am. I do appreciate that. But if we're not following the bylaws, and we're not following the recommendations of the financial people and the Attorney General's office, then what are we doing? I mean, what are we doing?
Well, we're always getting chastised for that.
Of course, we are, but again, here we are trying to fix that, and yet we're not getting anywhere with it. I mean, we're not getting anywhere.
Well, there's no question, but that there's still a lot of progress to be made on, bylaws that need to be amended, best practices that need to be adopted, improvements in our own practice. But I would point out to, anyone that wonders about the progress we've been making. We haven't had a letter or a visit from DOR other than a very positive
That's right.
couple hours, what about 2-3 weeks ago of how you doing, we want to get ready for the fall. Our audits that you're going to receive next week, the management letter is down to a scant 10 pages, of which 4 or 5 are the standard boilerplate, and we've already, Kelly and I have met and picked up, 4 or 5 items that we're gonna knock off so we can get them off the list. Moody's credit rating, independent observers who do this for a living,
Mhm.
I think have opined in a variety of different ways on the progress. As I say, I don't wanna sugarcoat it, we still have a while, ways to go yet.
Mhm.
But the staff's hard at work. I think you see the improvement
Oh, yeah.
on a regular basis. Just in the quarterly reports, these are
Mhm.
things happening.
Right.
If you think this is something that you don't want to pursue, I would suggest you just let me know tonight. If you think it is something that you do want to pursue, I would suggest that that would be worthy of a formal board vote.
Okay.
And not simply a consensus here in workshop tonight.
I just wanna know if we wanna move forward with it.
Yeah, it's the right thing to do. It's
Yes,
the
it's
right thing for the town, it's the right thing for the taxpayers, and it's the right thing for
It's the
The
right thing
sewer
for the
users.
ratepayers.
the ratepayers, right, yeah.
Yeah, and, because again, I have to throw a small caveat in there too, because obviously I'm a user, and obviously I try to pay my bill as much as I can. Not that I'm on any delinquent bills, I'm not, I'm really not, I mean, I think I owe them a couple $100, but anyways.
The town might not know, though.
No, they will not know. But it was funny, because I'm trying to sell one of my houses, and I didn't even know there was a lien on my property. There was a sewer lien on my I had no idea. Not because I didn't do something wrong. I guess there was some pipe work or something that they did, and there was like, everybody got like an X amount of dollar lien. This happened like in, I think, '05, '06, '07, something like that. Well, here I am in 2018, and I'm like, what do you mean it's my deed's not clean? What do you mean what do you mean? So I had to come in here, and I didn't put it on, but yet I had to pay like $20 to take it off, and I had to pay $75 to Worcester. I'm like, wait a second. I didn't even know it was on. How can I be responsible? And and there was a list of people. I mean, there was probably 6 pages of
Well-
people. And you know what, I'm sure there's
I'm
people,
trying to figure out how I can put this politely.
and I'm sure there's still people that are on that list that have no idea that they have a lien on their property from sewer.
Templeton chose in making those improvements to do them as betterments.
Yeah.
That's
Is the
not
sewer betterment?
not
Ah.
the norm for a major project like that. It is the norm if you're doing a street or if you're,
Right.
doing a new subdivision or something. The norm is, and the different people I've talked with would confirm this, is you do the project, you add the debt to the bills, you're done.
Right.
There's no liens, no nothing.
Right.
It then took, what at the time was a courtesy, instead of doing an individual lien against everybody's home, they did one single master lien, which at the time, the Registry of Deeds was willing to accept.
I see.
And at the time, the recording fee was $10.
Hmm.
The recording fee today is $75,
Yeah.
and the Registry of Deeds is no longer willing to do the kind of master recording and master discharge
Right.
that was done.
No, because it cost me $75, and I had to put a return envelope in it.
So,
I had to pay for my own stamp to get it back. I'm not kidding. I'm like, are you kidding me? And I didn't even put the lien on.
Yeah.
as you've witnessed over your 3 years, Diane now over her 4 or 5, and Doug over his 6 or whatever, all of these shortcuts that you take because you think it's gonna be simpler and easier, in the end of the day,
They do not.
often
It's not.
aren't.
One more, before we close, one more question.
Oh, I do have an announcement I need to make.
Oh, good. As far as, I mean, we have financial management policies in place that we've approved here, correct? Okay. We also have personnel policies in place here as well, correct? Okay, I want to make sure I'm right on this. So, I mean, how come they're not following the same policies or the bylaw that everybody else has to follow? I mean, is that like is that a direct question?
They have a different view of the degree of independence that they enjoy than does the Department of Revenue and
The Attorney General's office?
the uh, 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 several attorneys. So, and dealing with that is challenging. And, you know, I'm sure there's people It's easier in some towns than others. It's proven particularly challenging here because they really do seem to have this idea that because of the town's past financial problems, and continuing and ongoing,
Mm-hmm.
that somehow we're gonna scoop in and take, hundreds of dollars, and we can't. We can charge for the services,
Right.
and we can charge for indirects. It'll be challenging, but we'll put it on your
Thank you.
agenda next week and try to come up with a not horribly offensive to them motion.
Okay, anybody have anything else to add before we
I
leave?
do have one announcement I
Sure,
need
go
to
ahead.
make. As a result of experience in a local community, the fire chief asked, and we have arranged for 2 training sessions on sexual harassment, being against.
Oh,
it.
I've never been to one of those
Um,
classes.
There's always some jokester in one of the trainings that wants to know if we're for or against it, and we are obviously clearly always against it.
Absolutely.
One session will be here at 2 PM. Unless I hear objection, I will be making that mandatory
Mm-hmm.
for all employees. The second session will be
6:30 at the Templeton Center.
6:30 at the Templeton Center Fire Station.
For the fire staff.
I'm sorry, what?
For the fire
For the
staff.
fire EMS staff, if there is somebody that wants to attend in their
what day?
space. Do we have the date and time for that? 19th at 2 PM and then
6:30.
6:30. And we will be having access to a video on this, and it will become part of the orientation of all new hires.
Good.
We will be developing over the next couple weeks. Please remember, budget and legislative package has priority. Adam keeps reminding me, and I keep
Okay,
trying to tell him
keep
we've got all
doing it.
kinds of time. But we want to put together a series of videos. We want to make sure that the morning they get hired, they go take that Office of Inspector General, or the Ethics Commission, the
Right.
268A training, that they get this. And so we'll set up a workstation someplace where new hires can be oriented
Good.
on this material. So unless there's objection, we're going to make that training mandatory. As long as it doesn't cost me overtime. We'll keep the overtime to the minimum.
Please. Does anybody else have anything else? I don't see anything. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Have a second?
Second,
Great. Diane?
Yes,
Doug?
yes.
And I vote yes as well. Thank you all for joining.
thank you.
See you then.